Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining. There is so much happening in Minneapolis over the last 6 days, right? Tomorrow makes 1 week since our community has really found itself as back at being the epicenter of a nationwide move and call for justice. I wanted to hop on here because someone shared with me some footage of the aftermath of the fatal shooting of Renee Good. And for our process in terms of the organizations that I represent and that I lead, we really, one of our values is consent, checking in with family, making sure that they're okay with their loved ones being portrayed in a certain light. And I want to be mindful, right? In media, journalists oftentimes, they want to be first. They want to get the story out there, right? To help build their audience and serve their advertisers and all of these things that decenter our humanity, that oftentimes can sensationalize the truth. And so I have a certain process. My hope was to be able to reach out to Becca Good, the wife of Renee Good, talk to her, see if she wanted to see this footage, see if she consented with us editing it and blurring out the graphic nature of it so that it could become digestible for the public to view. That takes time, right? We don't have those relationships at this time. So we've been reaching out, trying to get in touch with the family. But in the meantime, I wanted to alert the public. Likely this footage will, and not just the public, I wanted to alert the media. Likely this footage will surface online. I believe that there are maybe 2 or 3 people who have this footage, and it is grotesque. It is extremely graphic. And so we alerted the media to also, we know here in Minnesota, our mainstream media does not always get it right. And so to share with them that they also have a duty to honor the dignity of Renee Good's life, and that they have a responsibility to ensure that they do not exploit her death, that they do not exploit anybody's death for that matter. And so I'm sure the media does not hear that message. Often there's no one in the newsroom who's really gonna say that. It's not necessarily the traditional code of ethics for journalists to not publish this type of footage. But I did share it with a group of mainly local media, a few national media outlets. I requested that they do not photograph or record the footage that I shared with them because of its graphic nature. We did provide them a few screenshots if they did want to report out verbally or in print what they witnessed on the footage. And so potentially those stories may be coming out. And so I wanted to share here with you all what I observed when I looked at that footage and try to be a barrier so that you guys don't have to be exposed to that level of trauma. And again, like I said, we're trying to reach out to the family. If anybody knows someone who is related to Renee Good or is close to her family, please, we're hoping to get in touch with her. We have encouraged eyewitnesses to upload this footage to the portal because the footage that is unpublished, that I gained access to, that I did a private viewing with, what it details is the aftermath. It details how this investigation was either handled or mishandled. And when we talk about whether or not this investigation is being handled at all, right? The FBI, the federal government came out very quickly and said, We will not be doing an investigation. The agent was justified in his use of force. Today, we saw 6 attorneys with the federal government resign as a result of their lack of investigation. But not only did they make a decision to not investigate, they also wielded their power to get the BCA, our local investigative bureau, removed from being able to investigate this case as well. And so we have seen the development locally from the Minnesota Attorney General, Keith Ellison, as well as Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty stepping forward, opening up a portal for evidence to be submitted publicly. But let's be clear, what is the timeline of that investigation, right? And needless to say, this is, I don't want to say an afterthought, but it cannot compensate for the poor investigation that was done on the scene. I'm going to show you guys a couple of still frames from this unpublished footage, just so you guys can kind of understand what it shows you. So please just be aware of the graphic nature of this. I won't show anything that is, grotesque or graphic in that nature, but just some shots so you can kind of get an understanding. So this first screenshot, you'll see when medics arrived on the scene, you'll see the back of Renee Good's head. You'll also be able to see what agency was there responding. So I'm going to cut to that here. And so you can see her head is down. She is leaning forward. And after you watch the moments following this, you start to wonder, did the medics see any signs of life? And the reason why that question is so imperative to the decisions that were made by those medical professionals following is, if there was no signs of life, then Renee Good's body technically should have stayed at the scene because it needed to be examined as evidence. This is critical because the federal government claimed that the shooting was justified only based on information saying that, the agent was in front of the car, right? So small details like where the bullet went through, how her body was leaning, all of that becomes evidence that can either prove their claims or disclaims. Right? And so removing claims from people in the public, they at this point were just speculation up until being able to see this footage. From the naked eye, there was no signs of life. So why was her body removed from that site? Her body should have stayed there, or medical professionals should be issuing a statement letting the public know what signs of life gave them the authority to remove her body from the scene. At that point, it should be investigated. But who there was in charge of the investigation? Was it the federal government? Was it the BCA? Was it the sheriffs? Was anybody even actually investigating? Is anyone even actually investigating this case now? I know there's an open portal where you can submit evidence, but there's been no communication as to the timeline of this investigation or anything. And so seeing this footage, for me, it definitely raised a lot of questions. I'm going to share with you guys another screenshot. Here you can see it was Minneapolis fire. And I suppose in this one, it's a not as clear, but the footage is very shaky. It was Minneapolis fire who ended up taking her out of the vehicle. No one covered her body at any time. They laid her in the snow. They cut some of her clothing off, and no one put up a tarp. No one covered her. And I'm trying to show you guys clips here that are not overly graphic, but to give you an idea of the vantage point and the viewpoint in which this eyewitness was standing while recording the footage. I'm trying to offer you guys some of the details without being disrespectful to her family. And I think that there is a way to get information out to the public without compromising the dignity of her life, and in a way that is respectful to the family. And so the questions that I also think need to be answered now that these 6 attorneys have resigned from the federal government is why. What exactly was it that happened where this ended up being the final straw for them? And I'm seeing some questions here. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can here. But again, we received directly from an eyewitness. It was verified that they were there on the ground when it happened. Some unpublished footage, extremely graphic in nature. And our process, and we believe and practice in trauma-informed journalism. Our practice is number one, first and foremost, to get consent from the family. Make sure that they're okay with their loved one being out in the public. I'll say, when you look back at history teaches us that sometimes that can be effective in bringing forth justice. When you look at the decision by Mamie Teal to publish the horrific pictures of her son Emmett Till, it changed America. And so it can be effective, but that is a decision that should be made only by the people closest to the person who has passed away. And so whether or not this footage ends up circulating online, I want people to be mindful of that. I don't think that the family has consented to this, and especially to the media. Being an independent journalist who has consistently been a voice to offer some disruption of the status quo of how mainstream media does things, the media has been briefed that this is extremely grotesque and that it should not just be pushed out on the internet, that there needs to be some editing, some redacting, and there has to be consent from the family. The last picture I'll show you, I know that there was a presence of the Minneapolis Police Department. They were also present at the time when Renee was pulled out of the car. And so there is a lot of witnesses who saw this happen. Minneapolis Fire, you can see there, this is the individual who ended up pulling her out of the vehicle. And the question that I have after seeing the footage directly to this individual, this professional, if they were trying to render aid, that totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. But what indicators of life did they identify? From the footage, it looks like she was deceased upon their arrival. At which point, that means if she was deceased upon their arrival, then her body should not have been touched in any way. It should have become a part of the investigation. And so there are a lot of concerns about the integrity of this investigation. We know the federal government has said that they're not going to investigate. They try to take the case away from the BCA. The Hennepin County attorney and the attorney general are collecting evidence, doing what they can. But ideally, when you have you would want investigators to be able to collect the evidence on the scene, not after the crime scene has been dismantled. I saw the footage yesterday, and I'm still processing the lack of care. There's so many different ways that it could have been. There shouldn't be a video. There shouldn't be a video because Minneapolis police was there, the sheriffs were there, federal agents were there, medical professionals were there. So you're telling me out of the dozens of different crisis response professionals who were there on the scene, no one could get a sheet, a tarp, a tent, anything to cover her body to obstruct the view from the public? And they cut her shirt off in broad daylight. I understand the priority, if they thought she was still alive, would be to render aid. That's totally understandable, but there's only so many people who can render aid at one time. So what is everybody else doing that's standing around? And here's the question. If there was proof of life and she was still living, and that's why they took her out of the car, and that's why they removed her scene from the body, then you tell me why the person who identified them as a physician who was there and offered to render aid before the medics came, why were they denied the ability to render aid if she was still living, right? And so I think for me, it's the discovery of these small details, these nuances that we got second and third and fourth hand from different people who were there, and we're trying to figure out who's credible. And there's AI videos and AI photos that are going out all over the internet. And so we don't want to just believe everything that we hear. We need concrete proof. We need concrete evidence. And so this footage, it's about 1 minute and 50 seconds. I think the original file is about 6 minutes. I have not seen the full 6-minute clip, but in the 1 minute and 50 seconds that I have been able to see, it just really bears the question of the integrity of this investigation. The question that has to be answered first, however, though, is, was there proof of life when medical professionals arrived? And if there was proof of life, why then deny her aid? There were people there who are offering to render aid to her. Why deny them? If there was still proof of life by the time medical professionals got there, they should not have denied the physician that was on site the ability to render her aid. That could be the difference. If she was still living, that could have been the difference between her living and her dying. And they denied her that. And so that, to me, is telling that it's like, okay, if that's your answer here to this footage that we're seeing, that she was still living, and that's why you pulled her out the car, and that's why you took her away, because she was still living, then somebody needs to be held responsible for denying her aid. And then if you're telling me that in fact she wasn't, then you have to answer why you removed her body from the scene, because that impeded on the investigation. It impeded on the ability for investigators to get photographs. And it's all these small critical details. When you have this case has become politicized, right? The investigation has become politicized. And so when you look at all these small, what seems like finite details, it could be the difference between the prosecutor having the evidence that they need to move forward with charges or not. So I'm trying to be based on what I witnessed, but as a human being and as a mother, I also am just deeply disturbed by the lack of respect for another human being. I've been in media now for almost 17 years. I've covered a lot of crime scenes, triple murders, double homicides. I referenced today that I was at the crime scene when Brian Quinones was fatally shot by police in Bloomington. And the BCA was called in to investigate that crime scene. They left this man's body on the ground for more than 4 hours in the rain until they fully completed their investigation. They covered him, but it's to compare and contrast. Why was her body removed from the scene so expeditiously, so expediently, so quickly? And if it's because she was still living, then why was she denied aid when a physician on site offered to deny aid? And so, as we think about where we go from here, there's either going to be charges or there's not. And if the Attorney General and the Hennepin County Attorney are really serious about moving forward with this case, I think they should update the public on what their timeline is, because people want answers. And I think people, especially people who witness this firsthand, are dealing with a lot of trauma. They're scared. They're terrified, right? They're afraid of retaliation for speaking out. They're afraid for retaliation of uploading evidence. But to assure the public that they are doing everything that they can to move forward swiftly, I think would give the public some ease that they're going to be making a determination within the time frame of this administration. Not alluding to the statutory limits allows them to try to prosecute this case under a different administration. And what some folks are saying is, well, what is the response then if there is charges? So you guys, I hope you all are taking care of yourselves during this time. There's a lot happening in Minnesota. There's a lot of pro-ICE out-of-town agitators that are showing up that do not have the best interest of people here in mind, that are trying to incite things, that are trying to incite violence. And so please be vigilant as you're out in community. We know that 1,000 more agents were deployed here. So officially in the state of Minnesota, we will now have more federal agents in our state, or I should say within the metro area, than what we do have local law enforcement. So our local law enforcement authorities will be outnumbered. And what that means, well, we're hearing from rapid response organizers that they're getting a call about an ICE arrest once every minute. I think 2-3 days ago, it was every 15 to 20 minutes. Now they're saying every single minute they're getting a call about a report of an ICE arrest happening somewhere in the city. We just posted a video a little bit earlier showing an ICE agent had arrested somebody in a car in downtown Minneapolis, pulled them out, didn't even put the car in park. The car starts rolling down the street. The ICE agent has to run and jump in the car. I mean, it's mayhem. It's door knocking is happening. ICE agents going directly up to people's doors. ICE agents arresting people at Target, arresting people at McDonald's. We saw the incident outside of the high school in Minneapolis, which has now resulted in a lot of schools in the Twin Cities shifting virtually. And so we, in my opinion, I would say, are in a state of emergency. And we need to be prepared. We need to have safety plans with our children. We need to be helping our children understand what it means to be living through this moment, because they, especially the little ones, cannot quite wrap their head around it. So I will continue to keep you guys updated, and not from a standpoint of trying to sensationalize stories, trying to show you guys people getting tear gassed and shot with rubber bullets and the most graphic. Like, that is not what independent journalism represents. In my opinion, independent journalism should be about getting you guys the facts, showing you what mainstream media will not show you. And yes, sometimes those things are included, but not in a way that sensationalizes things, not in a way that discounts someone's humanity. And so more to come. If we're able to connect with the family of Renee Good, if they would like this footage out, we will do our best to edit it in a way that honors her humanity, to show you guys. But it is the footage, the unpublished footage that we received it's horrific. If there was any question about where Renee was shot, I'm not sure if you guys felt like the reports of her being shot in the head were unconfirmed. But the footage is evidence that she was definitely shot in her head. This was overkill. They cut the medical professionals, cut the shirt off of her body. There was no injuries on her body. And so to see the federal government dismiss this so quickly, it does not surprise me that 6 attorneys resigned today. What does that tell you? What does that say? I hope that this, especially with the resignation of those attorneys, marks, a shift in what we've been seeing. I can't really say I'm confident that it will, but we should remain hopeful. We should remain hopeful. I was reminded today, just how much our ancestors endured. This was something that was mentioned today by civil rights leader, Dr. Nakima Levy-Armstrong. Our ancestors had to endure so much more. And so if they could make it through that, then we can make it through this. So please, you guys, I'm getting ready to log off. It's been an extremely long week. We will be covering the student walkouts tomorrow. There's also a press conference tomorrow as well with women and mothers calling for charges, demanding justice for Renee Good. We'll cover that. And I have been trying to swing by the memorial every day to just get photographs of how that site is growing. We do know that in Minnesota, whether they show it to you on mainstream media or not, when things like this happen, the community does come together and take care of one another. So in that same spirit, you guys, make sure you take care of yourself. Have a good night.